Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Telli Bear's Techy Tidbits, your cozy corner for STEM news, hosted by your friendly AI co-hosts. Today, we're gently exploring a big legal story about the invisible systems that power much of the internet. It's a story about Google, online ads, and a court case that could change things for all of us. And don't worry, we'll keep it grounded and clear.
You know that feeling, right? When an ad for something you just looked at shows up on a totally different website? Well, it isn't magic. It's a huge, multi-billion-dollar system. And for quite a while now, governments have been arguing that one company, Google, has an unfair level of control over it. So let's start with what happened by first understanding how this system works. It's okay if this is new to you. To really get what this big legal fight is about, we need to peek behind the curtain at the machine that places most of the ads you see online. To help us understand Google's role, regulators came up with a really powerful analogy, which was reported by Techy. They said it's like one single company owning a huge investment bank like Goldman Sachs and the New York Stock Exchange itself. In other words, the concern is that they don't just play in the market, they own the marketplace and the tools everyone has to use. Now for a jargon check. This whole system is often called the ad tech stack. That might sound complicated, but you can just think of it as the internet's invisible plumbing. It's the technology that connects someone who wants to advertise with an empty ad space on a website you're visiting, and it does all of this in the blink of an eye. The process is pretty neat. A website you love, that's the publisher, has an ad space to sell. Advertisers then bid on that space in a super fast auction, and the winner's ad shows up on your screen. The core of the government's argument is that Google controls the tools the publishers use, the auction house itself, and the tools the advertisers use to bid. This level of control eventually caught the attention of governments, not just in the United States, but in Europe as well. And that led to some really significant legal battles. So what happened in the courts? Well, according to the official timeline, the U.S. Department of Justice, or DOJ, filed its lawsuit way back in January 2023. This led to a trial, and in April 2025, a U.S. judge delivered a major ruling that Google had illegally monopolized the ad market. The official statement from the U.S. Department of Justice was very direct. They said, and I quote, "The court's ruling is clear. Google is a monopolist and has abused its monopoly power." The DOJ argued that this behavior didn't just hurt competitors, but also publishers and, ultimately, consumers like you and me. And this wasn't just a U.S. issue. At the same time, European regulators were doing their own investigation. The European Commission came to a similar conclusion, finding that Google had broken EU antitrust rules by giving its own ad services an unfair advantage. And the European Commission's ruling came with a very large financial penalty. They fined Google $3.5 billion for, as they put it, distorting competition. So, with a U.S. court officially calling Google an illegal monopoly, the next big question becomes, what should be done about it? How do you fix the problem? And here we get to the heart of the current debate. The U.S. Department of Justice is asking for what it calls a structural remedy. In simple terms, they want to force Google to sell off key parts of its ad business. On the other side, reporting describes Google's defense as arguing that a breakup is impossible. Google's official position is that its systems are too interconnected and that separating them would cause economic chaos and technological dysfunction. Interestingly, as one commenter on Reddit noted, this kind of argument isn't entirely new. They pointed out a parallel from over 100 years ago, when John D. Rockefeller made a similar claim that his Standard Oil monopoly was too integrated to be broken up by the government. So let's bring this back to our daily lives. What might all of this legal action in a courtroom actually mean for you? Well, let's look at one hopeful or constructive angle. For the websites you read and love, a breakup could lead to a fairer marketplace where they get to keep more of the money from the ads on their sites. In fact, according to reporting from Digiday, many of the publishers who testified in the case actually said they supported a breakup, believing it was the only real way to restore competition. Now for one concern people might have. According to the Center for Digital Technology, right around the time of these rulings, Google made a big change to its privacy plans. They quietly decided to abandon their Privacy Sandbox initiative, which was a plan to stop using third-party tracking cookies in their Chrome browser. In other words, those little bits of code that follow you around the web to build ad profiles are sticking around for now, which raises ongoing privacy concerns for many. So the future of how the open internet is funded really feels like it's at a crossroads. If you remember one thing about this story, let it be this. A major legal decision is trying to reshape the invisible systems that power the internet, and the outcome?
whatever it is, could change how we all experience the web. It's perfectly okay not to understand everything at once. Just staying curious is more than enough. This has been Telli Bear's Techy Tidbits, lovingly powered by AI. Thanks for keeping up with tech in such a thoughtful, grounded way. Have a magical day.